and Alex Barth.
I'm Evan Lazar.
Lazar.
Hello, everybody.
Nailed it. Joined as always by our Barth.
That's a fit. That's a match.
No risk it, no biscuit.
22.
Here is Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to complain for 30 seconds about our job. I'm gonna
Come on!
This is too quick. It's too quick, NFL. We were just at the Combine. It feels like yesterday that we were just at the Shrine Bowl. The Senior Bowl happens. Now, we didn't even get a full Combine recap show in before we have to start talking about free agency. What are we doing?
Okay, two things. First off, you don't even say hello. You literally just open the show by saying, I'm going to complain.
I said hello, and then I said, I'm going to complain.
Typical. And now we're going to get even more calls from people now about we should do the show twice a week. That's all that's going to do.
That was maybe part of it, but the main thing.
Welcome to the Evan Lazar Complaint Hour featuring Alex Barth. Evan doesn't want to talk about football again because he just did for the last week. Anyway,
I told you this. I told you this the other day that because they've pushed the Super Bowl a week later because of the extra game.
And remember, it's going to get pushed another
week. Pushed because we're pushing everything out. We need to have more time. We do. We need some more time to reset, decompress.
Say 365-day-a-year business.
Right.
There is the NFL.
Would it hurt anybody if the league year started in 2 weeks instead of 1 week from the Combine?
Well, now you're pushing free agency into the draft.
Well, yeah, but you push the draft back.
You can't push the draft back. They already did that. No, you can't. No. Because that's...
All right.
They're the two biggest seasons in the sports world, Evan. NFL season is number 1. NFL off season is number 2.
That's fair. All right. I think it's a little fast. That's all I'm saying. But we're going to talk about our takeaways from the Combine. We're going to wrap up the Combine and do some draft talk here for the first 30 minutes or so. And then we're going to end the show with a little bit of a free agency preview. But I want to start with the Combine, Alex. Both of us were very attentively watching the Combine all weekend long. I liked your point that you made on your appearance on Unfiltered at the end there, if you guys want to listen to that, about basically confirming our priors for the most part about this class and about where the strengths of the class are, but also some of the individual prospects. But I thought the easiest way to do it, we both have our lists, is 3 up, 3 down from the Combine. So I'll start. We'll do up first because we're positive people. We're not trying to bash people right out of the gate. So we'll do 3 up first. I'll give my 3 up. You can give yours, and then we'll do the downs. But I'm going to start with I think.
So hang on. Are we doing for Patriots prospects or just overall?
This was mostly overall, but it is a Patriots show.
Because Anthony Richardson obviously won the Combine, but that doesn't really mean anything to the Patriots.
I hear you. Yeah, so probably more Patriots then for my list at least.
Okay, so let's put that disclaimer. Anthony Richardson was excellent, and we move on.
We liked everybody liked Anthony Richardson. He is an extraterrestrial playing quarterback. Yeah, I think the biggest winner from the Combine for me, the biggest winner without even running a 40-yard dash, was Jackson Smith-Njigba from Ohio State, because this wide receiver class, and I'll say all 3 of my downs are wide receivers. All 3 of them. This wide receiver class, for 99% of the Combine coverage, was that Saturday, I think it was, that they did wide receivers, was just a major letdown. A major letdown. The one guy other than JSN that I think, and Quentin Johnston too, checked his own boxes with the verticals. He didn't run, but he checked some boxes too.
It's a major box he didn't check though.
Right. The one guy that I think was acceptable was Zay Flowers. I think he was acceptable. But 4.42 at 5'9", 180 is not exactly what I would have wanted to see, right? It's not as good as I would have wanted it. I go back to the 2022 class with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, who were both over 6 feet tall and both heavier than Zay Flowers, and they ran in the high 4.3s, right? They were 4.38 and 4.39 or something like that. So 4.42's moving, but we're not talking about 4.3 speed with Zay. He passed, right? He didn't elevate his stock, but he passed. I think the one guy that basically solidified himself as wide receiver 1 and a top 20 pick in this draft is JSN. Absolutely destroyed the agility drills, right? Like 3-cone, 6.6 seconds, I think was his 3-cone.
6.57.
Yeah, it just unreal. The on-field had everybody oohing and aahing and just in, a fever dream over at Lucas Oil Stadium about how good he looked going through routes and running the route tree with his quarterback CJ Stroud there throwing him the football a little bit too. I think that he squarely for me put himself in the conversation at 14. Like that was my big take going into the combine was I wasn't sure if any of the wide receivers were going to come out of the combine with me thinking if they took this guy at 14 it would be the right pick or the good value or whatever you want to call it. I think JSN now is in a handful of names that I would put there that say if they came away with him at 14, I'd be good.
Well, okay, let me ask you this. Did he take himself out of the conversation at 14? And what I mean,
go higher.
What I mean by that, remember last year we were all doing, Jordan Davis fall to 21.
Right.
And then he ran sub 5 and it was like, yeah, there's no shot. Did he take himself out of the conversation at 14? I think he might have.
So the Texans are the team, right? They're the ones that have the 2 first-round picks in the top 12, right?
Yeah.
I think it's 1 in 12 or 2
in
in 12.
And if they end up with Stroud, now you're doing that thing where you pair the college quarterback with his wide receiver.
Right. So it's possible. I could also see the Texans, if they do want to go receiver, and let's say they end up with Bryce Young, and it's not the whole college connection thing. Like I think Quentin Johnston is more Nick Caserio's type, to be honest with you. But I could see him. It's either the 12 or he's getting to 14, right? Like I don't think you have to worry about the Jets at 13.
I wouldn't sleep on 11.
Who's at 11?
Titans,
right?
And I know they need a tackle, and I had them taking wide receiver in my mock draft I put up this week on 985thesportshub.com. Everybody's freaking out. How do you not have the Titans taking a tackle? First off, I did. Scroll to the bottom. They traded back into the first round.
That's cheating.
No, it's not.
Okay.
Second of all, you look at I know people around here don't follow the Titans super closely. The narrative around the Titans right now is they had a window and they blew it by trading A.J. Brown.
Right.
John Robinson is we don't know what the exact conversation was, but it certainly feels like John Robinson got fired because he traded A.J. Brown. Let's not remember he got fired after A.J. Brown went off against them in the regular season this year. It feels like that's the move they need to react to. I know they cut Taylor Lewan. I know they need a tackle, but they can't come away from this draft without a replacement for A.J. Brown.
So, but don't internally, and I get where you're coming from totally, and I'm not going to nail you for taking a receiver. They have to think Treylon Burks is that guy.
But he wasn't last year.
So along those lines, I think
Evan,
Jason's a better pair with Treylon Burks than Quentin is. But if that's their type, if the bigger physical guys are their type, then I would think that Quentin Johnston would be their guy.
No, but okay. So this is what I'm saying. You're saying that the Texans might take Quentin Johnson over Jackson Smith and Jigba, right?
Yeah.
What if the Titans take Quentin?
I gotcha.
Right. So that's what
right.
So it's a down receiver class. We established that at the combine. That could actually push receivers up the board. Because what happens essentially is teams think, all right, well, we're going to have all these options. Suddenly you don't.
Yeah.
And then it becomes, all right, we have to get our guy because we can't afford to miss because the plan B isn't there. You see this sometimes where a bad draft class actually, at a position, will actually push certain players up the board because teams panic about missing. Given that there's depth at tackle, given that there's depth at corner, I think teams may look at it and say, the Titans are a perfect example where they need a tackle and a receiver. All right, well, we feel a little better about getting the tackle in the second round. If we don't take Quentin Johnson or Jackson Smith and Jigba or Zay Flowers, we're in trouble.
Yeah, okay.
So I actually think even though it was a bad combine for receivers, because it was all of them,
right,
I actually think the stock collectively ends up going up.
Okay, so let's not spend as much time on every single guy because we have a...
No, but I think that's an important conversation.
This is how it goes. My second up is Nolan Smith, who tested,
he's very good.
Tested like Captain America out there. I mean, it was incredible. He's a little light, right? He's only like 240 pounds. I think he's like between 235 and 240. My memory is crap right now. But he tested
240.
He tested like he should test at 240, right? Ran a ridiculous 40.
Tested like he should test at 225.
Yeah, just an unbelievable athlete. You watch him on film, it's all over his film. The get off, the explosiveness, the change of direction to chase down mobile quarterbacks. This is not a big need for the Patriots this year. And I just went on this whole thing on Unfiltered about how they don't have the luxury necessarily to draft for 2 years from now, like maybe they used to in the dynasty days, because they
do
have
at
some
some
holes.
positions.
I think that there's a very real possibility that they're sitting on the clock at 14 and Nolan Smith is the best player on their board. Like, he's just the top guy on their board. And I will never fault a team for taking best player available. Never, right? That's unless it's a guard, right? I will never fault a team from taking best player available. I also look at his skill set, and if he is the guy that you feel like takes over for Josh Uche, right? He's got a similar explosive edge presence to him, but I think he's actually a little bit better against the run. I think he comes in a little bit more of a playmaker against the run than Uche. And I look at Uche, and I love Uche.
Yeah.
But to me, for Bill Belichick, Josh Uche is a two-down player. He's a guy that tends to pile up stats in the fourth quarter of games where they're in control of the clock and they're teeing it off on Colt McCoy and the Arizona Cardinals. I don't look at Josh Uche as the complete edge that Bill Belichick pays, is my point.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. He's a good player, but are they going to give him a second contract?
Maybe if it doesn't get silly, but if he has another double-digit sack season, then it's going to get silly, right? And I don't see him as somebody that Bill Belichick looks at as a three-down player. And I don't know if you give a double-digit contract to a guy that's not a true every-down player for your defense. So I really like Nolan Smith.
Yeah.
And the last one is probably my favorite corner in this draft. My draft crush at corner is Deonte Banks from Maryland, who I think basically tested himself into the first round. So I guess in some ways this could be a down because I thought maybe he would be there at 46 for them. I don't think he's going to be there at 46 anymore.
Well, and we talked about it on Filtered. He's a guy, I think, when we talk about it, we call it the Barmore trade now, which is trading up in the second, and it's a second and 2/4, which they can do this year.
Yeah.
Very easily do. He's a guy that they maybe Barmore.
He was a little bit shorter than I was hoping for.
But he's 6 foot.
Yeah, in Maryland, I think they had him listed at like 6'1" or 6'2", and he came in at like 6.5. Right.
Okay. As long as he's 6 foot. As long as he's 6 foot.
Great
I think
athlete, great tape. Checks all those boxes.
What'd you think of Keely Ringo? Because I thought he was very impressive too. I know you were out on him.
I knew that, but I knew he was going to do that.
Okay.
When it comes to long,
you thought he was going to test that well? 4.36.
Yeah, his long speed is phenomenal.
6'2", 2 whatever.
I remember hearing about his track days, like his 100 meters, like in the 10-second range. He's an insanely fast guy. His problem is still change of direction. Like, he didn't prove to me necessarily that he can change directions or stop for that matter at a high level, but yeah, he was always going to fly. So JSN, Nolan Smith, Deonte Banks are my 3 ups. Who are yours?
All right, so I'm going to kind of go with the guys maybe later on in the draft if you don't get those guys. Big winner of the Combine that nobody's talking about, Evan. Okay. And it's a guy I've been talking about since September.
This is not
actually, I think since August.
This is not a punter, is it?
No, it's not a punter. But he is very good on special teams. And that is Bryce Ford Wheaton, the wide receiver from West Virginia.
How did I not see that coming?
6'4", 221, 4.38 40, 41-inch vertical, sub 7.3 cone, third best short shuttle. Evan, they had to go to Calvin Johnson to find a combine comp for him. And I'm not saying he is UDFA Calvin Johnson.
Tape.
What?
And UDFA tape.
I think you need to go watch again. It's
gonna make me do it.
It's like Taekwondo. And I made you watch Zach Kuntz. How'd that go?
Yeah.
I think you look at Taekwondo last year was projected as a UDFA test well at the combine. Well, we'll see. Test well at the combine, comes back, and people go back, they look at the tape, and all of a sudden he shoots up the board. I'm sorry, if you're that good of an athlete, especially in the modern game where athleticism is becoming so much more a part of it, there's something there. So I'm not saying I'd take him in the first round, but there's something there.
So is he, in your mind, a true X, or is he a big slot?
I think he'd probably be best as a true X, but I think you could play him as a big slot and get production.
So if you're telling me that Bryce Ford Wheaton, who we saw at the Shrine Bowl, and has made some good plays on film, I'm just kind of busting your chops about it. I think that.
By the way, shout out Eric Galco, who said on the show he'd get DK Metcalf comps.
If you want like a mid-round guy that maybe could push to be a starting X receiver one day, and you're not in love with A.T. Perry, then like I'm fine with.
That's the guy. I'm not saying he's putting himself in the first round conversation because he does really only have 1 year of production. He is kind of raw, but great athlete, very smart football player, will play on all 4 downs. Does have some positional versatility. Look, I don't know that he makes sense for the Patriots because if they bring in a receiver, I think there has to clearly be a role for that guy because they have so much depth. But if there's a team, like, all right, perfect example, like the Bengals, who can kind of just fit him in where they need him and let him grow.
Yeah,
he would thrive there, right? So,
all right, who's your next guy?
I think he'd be great. My next guy this one's actually a top of the draft guy. I was blown away by Christian Gonzalez.
Yeah, that guy's smooth.
That's the word, smooth. I mean, he looks like he's on skates.
Like butter.
When he's moving across the field. Everything he does looks effortless. And I don't mean in the sense that he's not trying, but like...
No, it looks like he's not trying.
Right. He ran the 40. It looked like he was jogging. He ran a 4.38.
Well, his sisters are like track stars, too. Yeah. Those Gonzaleses can fly.
But there's some guys who run 4.3, but you can tell they're really like fighting it.
Yeah.
Everything Christian Gonzalez did, he seemed super comfortable. He didn't even look like he was thinking about it. And that's
I just don't understand how that guy's not a top 5 pick in this draft. Like, I don't understand how there's not more buzz about
he might
him.
be now.
Yeah, about that, because I get the quarterbacks, like, push people down, right? But I mean just top 5 pure talent. Like, not take the position out of it.
We do this all the time. We were the 5 most talented players in the draft. He might be up there.
His film is outstanding. I mean, he plays press, he plays off, he plays zone, he plays match, he plays man, he plays everything at a high level. He's got great awareness. He's got decent ball skills. I think that's like maybe the one thing that you could look at and say, okay, like he's going to have to contend at the catch point a little bit better than what he did in college. But if that's the only thing that you have to fix at the NFL level and the guy's in position 9 times out of 10, like what are we talking about here?
And by the way, he's 6'2", so he's not going to be in that spot that often.
I'm telling you that he's got outstanding film and he's an outstanding athlete. I don't know what more people want.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a lot when we did our Combine preview show, right, about sorting things out. All right, we have this bunch of guys at this position, and we know that they're the top group collectively, but how do they sort out within each other? I don't have much of a question about the top of the cornerback board anymore. Look, Joey Porter I thought was good.
Nice player.
Deontay Banks was good. I thought Darius Rush from South Carolina I was more impressed with him than Cam Smith, to be honest.
Yeah, he's a good player.
But Christian Gonzalez looks like a 5-year
right,
NFL
and then we
pro.
didn't get to see Devin Witherspoon, unfortunately.
You're right. We didn't get to see Devin Witherspoon, so maybe him.
But he doesn't have Gonzalez's size, right? Like he came in at like 5'11".
Did he come in that small?
Yeah, Witherspoon's smaller. I think Witherspoon's best role in the league is going to be nickel. And I mean that as like he can be a all-pro level nickel, but I don't know.
Like Keitrell Clark.
Yeah, I don't know if he's like a true outside
He came
guy.
in at 5'11", because they had him listed at 6'1" at Illinois.
Yeah,
so.
he's smaller.
And then my final one, because I kind of got to go off the map, Evan. Just the tight end position as a whole. They all killed it.
They had to do that.
They were all excellent. Because I can't choose between Darnell Washington and Zach Kuntz because I was so right about both of them. And you were so disgusted. I encourage people to go back to the Combine and look it up.
I was disgusted because of the Old Dominion.
You were disgusted with Darnell Washington too. You wanted nothing to do with Darnell Washington.
So Darnell Washington.
And I told you, I remember you said he's too slow. And I said, what time does he have to run?
He doesn't run like that on film though. He doesn't. But it's bizarre.
And we talked about this because it wasn't his role at Georgia because they had Brock Bowers. He came in.
I know, but I sent you the clip of him running the seam.
Yeah.
I sent it. I texted it right to you, and I was like, "This guy's he's maybe it was because he wasn't running full speed and he was sort of pacing it out, but he just did not look like he was taking off at all."
Listen, I don't think it's just that. He played at Georgia at 275. He came in at 264.
Right.
He wasn't the tight end one at Georgia. It was Brock Bowers.
Yeah.
And really, Eric Albert factored in there as well.
So he was basically a tackle at Georgia is what you're
right.
telling me.
I think he probably spent the last couple months getting himself more in shape to be a wide receiver, and it showed. And I said this on that show. I think he probably put more of an effort into training for the 40. He's not going to be the same play. Teams aren't drafting him into the NFL to play the way he did at Georgia, and he has to change his body type a little bit accordingly, and I think you saw the results of that. Let's not forget, he also had decent agility drills.
Yeah, no, he killed it.
So
all
I
around.
think he spent the last couple months reinventing himself. He didn't go to any of the All-Star games.
Yeah.
Worked on his own. I think he spent the last couple months kind of trying to get himself into more of a tight end one compared to that extra tackle, and you're seeing it work.
He definitely came in lighter than I expected too. I thought he was going to be 275, 280. So I think he lost some weight to run well and move well at the combine, and maybe that does end up translating. He had, to me, the couple of things that you noticed about him as a receiver was good body control, catch radius. You know, he had the ability to make catches outside his frame with his length and with his body, contorting his body. And,
I mean,
that was impressive for a guy that big. I just didn't see that 4.6 coming. Like, that speed, I just didn't see there.
And look, I think if he ran it after the national championship, I don't think he runs a 4.6. I'm going to guess that's something he worked on. But if he can do that, we all know what a threat he's going to be in the red zone.
Yeah.
You go back and watch the blocking drills when all the tight ends were hitting the sled.
Right.
Everybody was struggling, and then he just puts the thing on ice. Like, yeah he was very impressive. He might be in the first-round conversation now.
I don't know where we're at with the Patriots anymore in terms of what they look for, because Matt Groh's in his position and Bill Belichick's maybe evolved. But the Dan Graham, Ben Watson, Rob Gronkowski Patriots draft Darnell Washington 10 times out of 10.
Well, that was the comp they put up during the Combine broadcast. And I felt kind of silly saying that a couple of weeks ago, but you watch the way tacklers bounce off of him.
Yeah.
Looks a little familiar.
Yeah, that Oregon play. All right. Did you do 3? No. You have one.
That was my third. No, it was Bryce Ford Wheaton, Christian Gonzalez, and the tight ends.
All right, so let's clear the board here and take some calls. 855-PATS-500, and then we'll do our downs afterwards. Raj, thanks so much for calling in. You've been holding on from Unfiltered to talk to us, and we really appreciate that. Say hello to the flagship show. No, the flagship show is right here. Raj, what's up?
Hey, thanks, Evan and Alex. I'm a long-time listener for both the shows.
Oh, thank you.
I'm more comfortable following this show because I used to follow this show right from Patriots Press Pass days, and I still follow with Alex and Mike there.
Oh, thank you.
I was comfortable talking in this show more in the X's and O's thing than that one. Sorry for that.
No, perfectly fine.
Against those guys. So actually, my question is, and it's not a question, it's like a discussion point. I see there is a lot of disrespect from the Patriots in the division, the way the betting odds have came out and everything. I know that Jets are making the moves and Dolphins are making moves and Bills are Bills. But if you see the Patriots' track record, they have been a few plays away with double-digit wins every season. Just 2-3 plays away. Even in the Cam Newton time as well, they were just 3 plays away winning 10 games that season. And from this team perspective, what I feel is this team is just lacking confidence in winning those big games. They are so close, winning so many games, and yet they lose at the end. That's what they need to figure out. So what I feel is the plan should be, instead of grabbing this mid-level players, they need to. They are in that phase now to hit a big-time player. Like just find the stars, like Tremaine Edmonds or Jesse Bates. Just go after the players who can take care of their position, and we have all the other secondary level of players to take care and play around them. That's how I feel at it. I would like to see your thoughts.
Awesome. Yes. Thanks for the call, Raj. We appreciate that. And it's a good point. I think that's where we're all at right now with this team, which is I like some of their depth pieces. Yeah. I like their roster for the most part, but they are missing those star pieces. And I think the other thing that he mentioned was just that confidence that I think Brady really gave them, to be honest with you. But that confidence that I brought up on the last, I brought up 28-3. Like, this team, I don't think has the confidence to go into halftime at the Super Bowl down 21-3 and then 28-3 early in the third quarter and say, it's all right, guys, we got this. You know, we're going to come back. We're going to win this game. That sort of confidence and that sort of belief in yourself, I think comes more when they go out and they trade for a DeAndre Hopkins and they sign a Tremaine Edmonds and they elevate their roster where they have some star players that can go out and just say, I'm just better than the guy that's lining up across from me, and I'm going to make it happen for us. And they might not have enough of those players right now.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think they've got like the secondary pieces in place. Now go out and get like the guys at the top of the depth chart. You're in good shape.
Right, and that's why I think we're both on the camp of hating a trade down for the most part, is because at 14 you hope you can come away with one of those pillars, one of those guys, those building blocks. Sean in Vancouver, what's going on, Sean?
Hey, guys. Good to speak with you again. I have a couple of questions. One question I have, and maybe you don't have the answer, but hopefully you do. Are the Patriots going to be doing anything in terms of coaching for special teams, like changing Cam Akers or adding help there? Because they were really awful in special teams, and I don't see anything improving if they have the same coaching in place.
Yeah, it's a fair question, Sean. Thanks for the call. So from everything that we've seen just on the outside looking in, we were out at the Shrine Bowl, you and I, Alex, and Cam McCord and Joe Houston, who's the assistant special teams coach, they were out there with the team at the Shrine Bowl coaching special teams. I went to the Combine. I saw both of them. They're out there meeting with special teamers. So those two guys are in place and are going to remain in place. I think the one wild card is, does Joe Judge start to gravitate back towards the kicking game a little bit and at least just offer some influence or offer some help on special teams? But Cam McCord is going to be your special teams coordinator next year, and your assistant coach is going to be Joe Houston. I don't think that's changing in terms of titles. Yeah,
I'm with you on that. I think those are the guys going forward. And does Joe Judge advise there? Does he get an official title there? We'll see. But I don't think there's anybody else from outside coming in, and I don't think either of those guys. I know some people have wondered about Cam Akers' job security. If they were going to get rid of him, they would have done it already. He's here.
Yeah, I don't think that's happening quite yet. And I do look at Joe Judge, though, and I wonder if maybe he's somebody that is more of a floater in terms of where he's coaching next year. Yeah. And maybe he touches a little bit more on special teams than he does anywhere else in the building. All right, Patty from Agawam. Patty.
Hey, before I get to my point, let me just say I'm totally on board if you guys want to go twice a week. I can't get enough of the Catch-22.
Appreciate it.
So I'm going to preface this, and Alex, I want to have a little counterpoint with you because I don't like arguing with people. It's not my style. But I'm going to preface my point by saying, out of the two players I'm going to bring up, I want Jerry Jeudy. On Patriots beat, the last one you did on Tuesday, you said that Jeudy would be a better system fit for DeAndre Hopkins. My point is, Hopkins played 6 years under Bill O'Brien's system. Now, granted, hopefully, the system that he brings in here is going to evolve and do a little Alabamification, as you guys like to say. And Jeudy only played. I don't even think did he play one season with Mac Jones, or was basically Tua his quarterback for his couple years. And I just want to know where you're kind of coming from, where you see Jeudy as a better system fit. And like I said, I would prefer Jeudy over Hopkins.
Yeah, so Jeudy played half a season with Mac when Tua got hurt his last year there, and Mac stepped in at the end of, I think it was like 4 or 5 games. System fit, it's funny. I actually thought about that comment after I said it. System fit was probably the wrong phrase to use. Basically what I mean is I think they need a guy in the slot. They need a guy who can put up massive numbers, could be a volume receiver in the slot. That I think would be the best addition.
Just to get the static off. Sorry, Patty.
Sorry, Patty. It's a fair question. I basically just think they need a slot machine guy, a guy that's just going to go in the slot and get 120 targets. DeAndre Hopkins isn't doing that. He's probably more familiar with Bill O'Brien's system. Like Patty said, he played there. And obviously, look, he succeeded in that offense, but that was 4 or 5 years ago at this point. I'd rather see them get the slot receiver, and that's Jerry Jeudy.
So I'm coming around more to the DeAndre Hopkins trade just because I think he's the best receiver that we've heard that's available.
That's
right?
Look, I'm not
I don't
against
know if Jerry
Hopkins,
Jeudy is actually available, but what I do love too about the Jerry Jeudy thing, I agree with your point about the slot and the route running and stuff, but he's just younger. And
he's 23. He has upside.
I love the idea.
He's 3 years younger than Jacoby Myers.
Of pairing, when you look at like what the Bills did with Stephon Diggs or what the Eagles did with A.J. Brown. Like those guys were hitting their second contracts when they were acquired. Hopkins is much further down the line here, and that does have some concern for me, is that you're acquiring a 31-year-old receiver.
Right. There's no upside here. You're getting him on the back end.
And it's great that he's going to be, I think he's going to be a Pro Bowl All-Pro talent for the first year or two that he's here, and that's great. But I don't know if that you really want somebody ideally that's growing with Mac Jones instead of somebody that's just a ready-made thing like Hopkins. All right, Eldred, what's up, Eldred? Eldred,
hey, Evan and Alex, how y'all doing?
Good.
Okay, good. I got a question for you. Then I'm gonna take it off the air.
All right.
Let's say all the tackles are gone. Okay, at 14, you see Joey Porter, Quentin Johnson, Gonzalez, and an edge rusher sitting there at 14. Which one you taking? And I'll take it off the air. Thank you.
Thanks for the call, Eldred. I'm
Gonzalez.
going Christian Gonzalez.
Gonzalez is the best player there.
Yeah, I'm going Christian Gonzalez. So I'll do this because I appreciate the call, Eldred. I don't know if Gonzalez is going to be there.
I would be shocked if he's
So
there.
if it's Joey Porter Jr. versus Quentin Johnston versus, let's say, Nolan Smith, because I know he's an edge rusher. Like, those three guys. Let's take Gonzalez out of it because I don't think he'll be there.
I'd still take Joey Porter. I think he's the best of those. I think he's the best player of those three for this team right now.
Yeah.
Quentin Johnston, we have our reserves about, and I don't think he's a scheme fit. Nolan Smith down the road might end up a better player than Joey Porter, but who's helping him more in 2023?
Yeah. I'm with you. I like Joey Porter as well. All right, we got a very special caller that's on the screen. And you got to keep it PG, Mr. Amos, all right? You're on the air, Bradley. What's up, Bradley?
Hey, first time, long time here.
Yeah.
I just needed to say, Evan, he's just been covering both sides this entire draft process. So 2 weeks ago, he's saying how much he loves the Northwestern tackle. I say, hey, he might be a guard. He goes, he's not a guard. Instantly starts his mock draft saying, this guy might be a guard. Like, he's playing both sides. And then we go to Indy. We have a great time at the Combine. He's spending all day Friday saying, hey, this isn't a wide receiver draft class. By the time the plane lands, he's saying if we don't take JSN at 14, it's the end of the world. So I just need to say, Evan, playing both sides a little bit here.
Okay.
That's a great call. That's an excellent call. Let me fill the listeners in on something.
I'm hanging up on Bradley.
I know, but I want to make sure Bradley hears this. I hope he's still listening. And if not, if somebody in his office could play it back for him. Evan's favorite prospect at any given time, and it's been this way for years, is the last prospect he watched.
Absolutely.
Evan's draft coverage is based almost entirely on recency bias.
100%.
So,
except for there's 2 or 3 guys that I just love from the
There's
jump.
guys that will hang around, but those guys are always in the background. So it's
right.
Evan always says they should draft, insert the last player he watched, and then if not him, and then he has 2 or 3 fallback guys. But Evan's favorite player in any given draft is the last player he watched. Remember we went through the Cody Mock phase a couple weeks ago?
I love Cody
How's
Mock.
that go? Right? So
that's a hog molly.
It's the scene from
it's a road grader.
It's the scene from Good Will Hunting. Remember where they're in the bar and they're arguing and he's like, oh yeah, of course you say that. You probably just read this book and you'll be in here regurgitating it until next week. And then you'll read Gordon Wood. And then you'll be telling us that Gordon Wood was right. And then you'll come in here in a couple weeks, you'll have read another book. That's Evan. Evan is the guy with the ponytail from Good Will Hunting when it comes to NFL draft coverage. The last thing he saw,
the face of
he
Matt
loves
Damon,
it.
Though, let's face it. But Bradley, great call. You're 100% right that I love playing the fence or playing both sides. That way I'm always right. Like that's the best way. Oh, you mean Peter Skoronski? The Patriots drafted him, and he turns out he's a guard.
So now you're Mac from Always Sunny,
right? I mean, that's how you cover your bases. That's how you do it in the draft. Because guess what?
Stand for something, Evan.
Nobody knows.
Stand for
Nobody knows what's going to become of any of these guys. So you play both sides. You tell the whole story, and you let the cards fall where they may. So this is a good teeing off point, though, because I think there is a couple of guys every year, as you mentioned, that just stick around as guys that I just love, and I'm going to love throughout. So I think that maybe I should give some names, right? I think there's a couple guys here that I love from the beginning.
To be fair, I think JSN is one of them.
JSN's one of them, 100%. Yeah. My number 1 graded wide receiver from the jump. I've loved JSN the entire time. I was I just needed to see it in the combine to believe that it was real, to believe in myself, in my eyes, that I was like, I am seeing what I am seeing. I think I've been on Christian Gonzalez pretty high for the most part the whole time as well, and I do love Skoronski.
Would you draft him at tackle? Would you draft him at 14 to play tackle?
I would draft him at tackle. I would play him at tackle
at 14?
At 14. I don't want to hear it about arm length. Look at the guy's feet. Look at the guy's makeup. Look at the guy's ability to move people off the line of scrimmage in the run game. I think he plays great technique. I think he has great feet. I think he has great athleticism. If you're going to get caught up in things like arm length, we're going to be here for a long time, right? Like every single guy has one of those blemishes on his draft card. That's why nobody's a sure thing. It's why everybody's got something. Even the top prospects, like even Will Anderson has something that is like, I don't love this about his game though, right? Like everybody, you can do that about every single player. So I think those three guys, Skoronski, JSN, Gonzalez, are 1, 1, and 1 on my board. I would say Skoronski is my number one tackle, but just a guy that I believe in.
It's always going to be, I like the last player I watched, and also Peter Skoronski and Jordan Addison.
Yeah. So this
and JSN. Sorry, JSN.
So the one guy that is totally recency bias is Laporta from Iowa.
You are really into Matt Laporta lately.
I love Laporta. I love him
until you watch Zach Kuntz.
Yeah, and then I don't want to use the comp on Patriots.com. All right,
he's athletic. He's very athletic.
He's a very athletic, quick, sudden tight end. Hopefully, you kind of get my gist. I love Laporta. That's a recency bias one, 110%. I've been looking at the back end of that tight end, Schoonmaker, Kuntz, Laporta, like that part of the tight end class, and I'm gravitating towards Laporta.
So here's the thing, though, because you don't talk about draft prospects until February, so
correct. So I'm playing catch up the whole time.
But you don't have any history. Yes. Is my point. I've been in on Josh Downs since September. I've been in on DeJuan Jones since September. I've been in on Jordan Battle, Jake Moody. I wrote about these guys in September. The point being, those are my guys that those are guys that I'll keep coming back to.
So to bring this all home, full disclosure, Bradley, who just called in, is one of our very talented
he ruined
video guys. Okay, so he's somebody that works with us, and I keep on telling him that he needs to pull up a chair and sit at the mic because he knows about as much college football as you do, Alex. Like he's a whiz when it comes to college football. Went to TCU, worked at TCU for a little while, so he's a frog. Even though he doesn't want to admit it.
Everybody upstairs except for you likes college football.
Oh yeah, he does a ton. We watched the combine together.
You guys got to start holding him to the mat a little bit more with college football.
All right, let's get through the rest of these calls. Phil Natick, what's up, Phil?
Yeah, hi. Just a question for Evan. Evan, in a recent podcast, I thought I heard you say that you, quote, guaranteed that Matt Groh did not make the Cole Strange pick, which actually made me happy because I think it was a dumb pick at the time, and I'd hate to think he's in charge of things. So if he didn't do it, who did?
Okay, so I just want to preface this very clearly. I have no inside information on this. That I am not concrete, 100% sure. That was just like a take of mine.
Yeah.
But with that being said, the Cole Strange pick feels like a Bill pick to me. It feels like a Bill Belichick pick. They needed a guard. He, I think, looks at it, at least recently, based off his recent draft record of what's the biggest hole on my roster right now.
Regardless of position.
If we had to go out and play a game on Sunday, where would I feel the worst about on my team? I think he felt it was guard. What I think does happen a little bit in this process, as I've gotten to know some of the process and the people involved a little bit more, is I do think that Groh is the one that's doing the fact finding, right? Like I think that in a lot of ways, Groh comes to Bill and says, here's 100 guys that we really like. And then Bill goes through the film himself, and then he ends up picking the guys that he prefers in that group of 100. So I personally think that the guy always, when it comes to the draft, the guy that has the final say is Bill Belichick. I don't think that anybody else is in control of that final
except for
word.
Trey Nixon. That was Ernie Adams.
Except for Trey Nixon, that was Ernie Adams. But when it comes to the final, we're handing in the card to the league. This is who we're taking. I still think that the buck stops with Bill Belichick, and it always will as long as he's the head coach. I hope that answers your question.
It's crazy. He had just traded Shaq Mason to get a sixth-round pick, and now they're spending it on a guy that everyone else thought would be a third-round choice out of Chattanooga.
Yeah, no, totally, Phil. And that was my whole thing with, and thanks for the call. That was my whole thing with the Cole Strange pick from the beginning was everybody I think got misconstrued that I was going off about Cole. It has nothing to do with Cole Strange, right? It just has to do with the fact that you're trying to compete with Buffalo and Cincinnati and Kansas City and Miami, and now you're trying to compete potentially with the Jets if they get Aaron Rodgers, and you're taking guards from Chattanooga in the first round of the draft. Like, they just need to move the needle more than that. And that was my entire thing. All right, Willem and Philem. What's up, Will?
What's going on, Evan? How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for calling in.
Okay. Just want to say something to your partner in crime next to you, Alex. I'm also a fan of y'all. I've been watching y'all since y'all was on, like, doing YouTube and whatnot, and now you big time. Now you have the Catch-22, and, you know, I'm just a big fan of both of y'all.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Keep the good work up. And my question, not so much a question, it's basically I just want to piggyback off of what you just said, Evan. So are you just a little bit worried, too, about, you know, even though Bill gets the last say and whatnot, are you just a little bit worried this year for this draft and also free agency of who Bill's going to bring in?
Yeah.
Who's he going to pick?
I'm not as worried about free agency because I think free agency we know who these players are in the league for the most part.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things with the free agency class a couple years ago is that for a guy like Jonnu Smith, for example, Jonnu Smith's been the same guy that he was in Tennessee for the Patriots pretty much, right? Like I just think that they thought that there was more untapped potential and more upside there, that there might not, like his stats, besides maybe touchdowns, which he had that one big touchdown season with the Titans, have been pretty consistent throughout his entire career. What are you smirking about?
So I got something from a source here, Evan.
A source called Bradley Amos?
I got something from a source. Who's your comp for Deuce Vaughn in this draft?
Deuce Vaughn.
Yeah.
I don't remember
From
what
Kansas
I said.
State, the running back?
Yeah. I know who Deuce Vaughn is.
Yeah.
I don't remember what I said.
Did you ask him about Darren Sproles?
I probably did.
Yeah, they're like very close.
Yeah, so I
watched a single Kansas State game this year. You know that. But these are the things you don't see on film.
So free agency, I'm not as worried about. To get back to the point.
Yeah.
Free agency, I'm not so worried about. The draft, I'm still worried about. Because when they in 2021 they went with the chalk draft, like is what I like to call it. Mac Jones, Christian Barmore, Perkins, Ramondre. Not all, Perkins hasn't worked out yet, but we're talking about Alabama, Oklahoma, like big time programs, guys that we know, names that we know. But then they also had the Duggar draft and they had the Cole Strange draft. So I'm not sure where we're going with the draft.
Well, it's every other year at this point. So this year is a big school year.
Right.
No, I'm kidding. I would say I think and this isn't even like a Patriots thing. If you're a fan of any team and you feel great about your team going into the draft like 2 months ahead, you're kidding yourself.
Can I say?
Go ahead.
One more thing.
Yeah.
Okay. I got to break this down in basically two ways. So this is from both of y'all. So Alex, I like the right. I think is he a right tackle? One that from Ohio State, DeJuan Jones.
DeJuan Jones. Yep.
I'm with you all the way with him. Okay.
Love it.
Evan, I'm with you on JSN. He is. Oh my God, he's nuts.
Oh yeah.
You Ohio State fan or?
Yes.
There we go. Yeah.
There you go.
One of my college teams. Yeah. One of them. Yes.
Thanks for calling in.
Take care, gentlemen.
Thanks for calling in.
Thank you.
Look, JSN's just he looks the part. He's a good looker. You know, you look at the route running, you look at the quickness. I've always said that I think that what the Patriots should do, and this is where I think they've ran into problems with the wide receiver position at the top of the draft. And I'm not ready to give up on Tyquan yet either, but I'm throwing Tyquan in that as well. I've always said that the Patriots should look for first round Julian Edelman. Like who's the guy that has a lot of the same traits as Julian Edelman, but is somebody that has that first round pedigree and that first round talent. And I look at a guy like JSN and isn't that's JSN to a T.
Well, okay, but so let me ask you this. Is that guy in the draft every year?
Maybe.
It's
a fair point.
I don't know that there's a player that fits that mold better than JSN since, I mean, when could we realistically have started having this conversation? 2020?
Yeah, I don't think that he fit the mold exactly as to how I just described it.
Yeah.
And I get that it's easy to say in hindsight, but you remember, like, Justin Jefferson.
It's different.
But I think Justin Jefferson was. I see a lot of the suddenness and the change of direction at 6 feet tall for JSN. I think Justin Jefferson's might be like 6'1". He might be a little bit bigger, but I see both of them. The way that they move is very similar.
Let's even do this. Edelman was still here in 2020, so realistically, you start having that conversation in 2021. Maybe Kadarius Toney.
Yeah.
But he's not quite like he's sort of a different player.
Yeah, he's more like a gadgety, shifty guy.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, JSN, none of the guys really last year. I mean, they weren't going to have a shot at Olave. Maybe it was Chris Olave, but they weren't going to take him.
Right. That's the other thing I think with JSN is that you are in a position in this draft to take him. Like, in other drafts, you might not have been in that spot.
If they'd made the playoffs, JSN wouldn't have been in play.
Right. So you're actually in position to take him. But I've always said that about receivers with the Patriots, and that's why I haven't been super in on Quentin Johnston for them, is just the type of receiver that works for you, right? Like, you know the type of body type, the type of movement, the type of route running, the position that he plays. Like, go out and get Deion Branch again. Like, Deion Branch was a second-round pick.
Right.
Go out and get Deion Branch.
Okay, could you... Because obviously Julian Edelman's a lofty comparison. Your same take, but replace Julian Edelman with Jacoby Myers.
So I think that JSN is Jacoby Myers with higher upside, right?
Okay.
Like, he's with higher physical specimen type tools, right? And that's what I'm chasing. I'm not chasing, DK Metcalf. Like, I'm not chasing like the next great outside receiver. I'm chasing the guy that I'd say, this is the fit. This is a match. This is exactly what you want in a Patriot receiver, and that's the guy. And I think that he's going to be right there for him to take him too. So I would be disappointed if they passed it on him. Let's see who they take, right? If they take somebody that I like too, I won't be that disappointed.
I still feel like, it's close. Maybe 55-45. I still think, if I had to choose right now, is he on the board at 14 come that night? I don't think he is.
Okay. I hope you're wrong, because I hope they take him. All right, Jonathan. What's up, Jonathan?
What do you ultimately think the Patriots will do in the offseason when it comes to signing players and drafting players?
That is a very broad question.
That's the whole show.
You're right.
That's what we're doing here.
But
it's a good
we're
question.
We're going to use it as a transition, Jonathan, and thanks for the call.
We never did our 3 down at the Combine.
We didn't.
Never did down.
We didn't do down, I know. We're going to get to it. Right. I do want to pose a couple questions that we can answer a little bit more quickly that Jonathan just kind of teed up for us here. So the first, I have some burning questions about free agency. All right, and I sent you these ahead of time so that you could prep some answers here because they're a little specific. All right. So the first burning question for free agency that I have is, what is your max contract for Jacoby Myers? Like, what's the ceiling that you're willing to offer Jacoby Myers to come back to the Patriots?
$12 million a year.
So I'm at that 3 for 37.5, which is like $12.5 million a year. 3 for 12.5. Obviously, the guarantees and all that kind of stuff is beyond my math capabilities right now, but something around there. And I just want to put it out there because, and you could agree with me or disagree with me, but I think some people take that as a lot of money.
Yeah, no. So
that's not a lot of money anymore.
Where I'm getting $12 million from is Phil Perry reported the expected range for Myers is $12 million to $15 million.
Right. That's right where I'm at.
So that's where the 12 comes from. I think Jacoby's a really talented player, but that Belichick-ism I love to use. It's not about collecting talent. It's about building a team, right? They need more explosion out of the wide receiver spot. In the reality, and look, you could add an explosive player and bring Jacoby back, but there's only so many snaps to go around. Now you have new wide receiver. You have Jacoby Myers. I can't do another year of them not playing Kendrick Bourne.
Right.
You've got
Parker Thornton.
Well, I was going to say Thornton, who you still have to develop. You have to play. Maybe Devontae Parker's a candidate come this summer.
That's the way I look at it, is that you come out of the summer feeling this is our top 3.
Yeah.
Right? It's number 1 receiver. It's Jacoby. It's your number 3 guy between those 3. Parker, Bourne, and Tyquan.
Yeah.
And then you keep one as your 4th guy in case somebody gets hurt, obviously, for depth. And then the 5th guy ends up being a casualty.
I guess you could. It's a lot of snaps to go around. It's a lot of money because you got to pay. I guess if you draft JSN, it's different. But you can't really... if you draft JSN and sign Jacoby Myers, can you have both of those guys on the field at the same time?
I think those two guys are a little bit redundant.
So and I know it sounds dumb to say he's a good player, but does he fit on the depth chart? But there's only...
Well, let me give you what Deuce says, which I think is spot on. He moves the chains, but he doesn't move the needle.
Yeah, it's not even that. And there's a room for that guy on your team.
Right.
But there's only so many snaps to go around for everybody.
Yeah.
And you want to be efficient, and you want to have pieces that fit together. And I just think it's really tough if you bring back Jacoby Myers to then figure out how you're still adding that explosive piece unless it's purely banking on Tyquan Thornton taking that next step.
Yeah, I just think that I look at it.
And I would add, too, all right, so that's $12 million. Let's say they trade for Hopkins. That's another $18 million, call it
19.
Against the cap. 19 against the cap, right? So that's now almost $40 million, right, at wide receiver.
And real dollars, not in cap dollars necessarily, but in real dollars.
Okay, but the point is, let's call it $7 million in cap for Myers. That's still a lot. Take that $7 million, put it. You're already investing a lot of money in wide receiver. I'd rather take that $7 million, put it somewhere else.
Yeah,
right.
That's totally fair. I just think that you have to look at it. If you're the Patriots, I do think you need to look at using 2 premium assets of yours on receivers.
I don't think it has to be 2 if you get the right kind of wide receiver.
I just think that it has to be a first-round pick or a top 50 pick, I should say, and I would want to use some cap space on a receiver too.
Okay, well, but that could be like Hopkins, right? Where you trade for.
If it's Hopkins, is the same guy.
Okay,
right.
but let me ask you this: so you're saying premium pick? How would you feel about Hopkins and Rakim Jarrett or Hopkins and Charlie Jones?
Right. No, I was going to bring up Charlie Jones because that might be the slot guy, right? That might be the guy.
I wouldn't call that a premium pick.
No, I wouldn't necessarily either. I've been on Laporte. I'll continue with Laporte. Maybe maybe you draft a tight end that's a chain mover, right? Something like that. I'm totally for those scenarios.
So so you don't have to use 2 premium assets on a wide receiver necessarily.
If you're trading for Hopkins, you're using the top 50 and you're using cap space.
Oh, okay. I get what you're saying. Okay, you need to use 2 assets, but you don't need
2 players.
It doesn't need to be 2 players. Okay, I would agree with you on that. Yeah.
Okay, next one here. I actually really like this free agent tackle class.
It's a lot to like.
I think I really like it. The OT class I'm talking about, of course. Would you rather game. Would you rather pay a right tackle, McGlinchey, McGarry, Jawan Taylor, a couple of good options there. Would you rather pay a right tackle or draft a right tackle?
Well, the right tackle in the draft is DeJuan Jones.
It is DeJuan Jones.
Everybody knows how I feel about.
That's the question, though. This is why I pose the question, because it's a good question.
Well, I'm okay. If they are only going to add 1 tackle, I would rather them draft.
Okay.
Because
that's fair.
Trent on the left side, DeJuan Jones on the right side, if that's it. But I would rather, I'm very much on record, right? Soto, sign 1, draft 1. I would much rather them, add 2. If that's the case, I'd rather sign on the right side because I think it's much easier to draft a left tackle.
I also I'm actually in on this right tackle free agency class because I think that what you do there is you get a guy that you don't necessarily need to coach up or touch too much, right? And then you don't have to worry about developing both sides.
How much you need to coach up DeJuan Jones?
I think that at least he's a rookie that's going to have to learn something.
All right, let me add this.
It's not like he's...
If it's not DeJuan Jones,
yes,
just pay a guy at that point.
Okay.
So I guess my answer is unless it's DeJuan Jones, I'd rather pay a right tackle.
So you wouldn't draft like Darnell Wright from Tennessee?
I would, but I would rather pay Mike McGlinchey.
So I actually like the idea of paying the right tackle because, I think you get it for a little bit less.
A little more value,
than the left tackle, and I still think it's a premium position. And then in the draft, maybe you go after an Anton Harrison, maybe you go after Trent Brown, maybe holds the position as a bridge to Jalen Duncan or a Bergeron or somebody like that. That's more of a day 2 tackle option. So that I'm all in on this right tackle class. I'd like to see them make a swing at right tackle. I would. I think that the guy that I would prefer them the most, I'm gravitating towards Jawan Taylor more by the day.
I am too.
I just think he's younger. I think he checks a lot of boxes for them in terms of what they look for in tackles. The one hang-up that I have is that he's known to be a better pass blocker than a run blocker.
You got that backwards.
No, he's a better pass blocker.
Really? You think so?
Yeah,
All right.
better pass blocker. And if on the right side, they typically go with the bulldozers
blocker,
over there.
yeah.
Right? So is that change up? Do they – well, I don't like the idea of signing a guy to a huge contract and then flipping him.
Yeah, you can't do that.
You can't mess with him.
Can't do that.
Right?
We just did that. We saw how that
right.
worked.
So he's a right tackle. And then I think left tackle, you do have Trent.
Yep.
And then you do maybe have Anton Harrison, Jalen Duncan, like one of these guys that you don't need to put the pressure on that he needs to start right away.
Well, that's where like a guy like Darnell Wright's interesting because do you draft? It's essentially what they did with Nate Solder.
Yeah.
Do you draft Darnell Wright as because he can play both sides?
Yeah, he has played both
right.
sides.
So do you draft Darnell Wright as your long-term left tackle? But he's also, if you need him to fill in on the right side in his rookie year,
right,
he can do that as well.
Okay, but I think we're both.
Is that Solder or Vollmer? They did that with one of those guys.
Solder. Solder played right.
Solder
tackle
played right. Okay,
rookie.
yeah, I thought so. Because Vollmer got hurt. Vollmer was the one who got
right.
hurt. Yeah.
I think we're both though in pretty lockstep that we'd be pretty pleased if they paid a right tackle in free agency or paid a tackle, I should say.
Yeah.
I just don't love the idea of Orlando Brown because I think
then if they're not paying Orlando Brown, it's a right tackle.
Right, and that's why I'm in on the right tackle.
Unless you're like super in on Donovan Smith.
Because I think that they're going to have to pay through the roof for Orlando Brown because he's by far and away the best left tackle in free agency in a free agency that's not stocked with left tackles.
Who do you have second, Isaiah Wynn or Donovan Smith? Or I guess Taylor Lewan, we can throw him in there.
I think the problem that I have with Donovan Smith and Taylor Lewan is you already have Trent Brown. So if you're going with a guy that's going to be holding down the position for a year or two, like don't you already have that guy on the roster that's been in the system, that's been in the program?
Well, I guess the idea is you can save $7 million if you cut Trent Brown, if you can turn it into a net gain financially.
I still think that maybe not Lewan, but I still think Donovan Smith is going to get some money.
I think he is too. I'm just asking.
Yeah, if you.
And I also just kind of wanted to illustrate that after Orlando Brown, that's the next group is Donovan Smith, Taylor Lewan, and Isaiah Wynn. Right now, PFF is Isaiah Wynn is the second best left tackle in free agency.
Jeez. If you want to sell me on,
he's going to get what was the tweet, like at least $5 million or something, whatever that tweet was.
If you want to sell me on, we're going to sign Donovan Smith in free agency.
Yeah,
we're going to flip Trent back to right tackle. And then we're going to draft a tackle, and wherever that tackle lands is where he lands, left or right. I'm okay with that. Like, let's say maybe it's a left tackle that you're drafting, and you're thinking, okay, we're gonna bridge that gap with Donovan Smith, so he doesn't have to play as a rookie,
Right.
Or you can say the same thing about the right side with Trent. All right, last free agency question here, then we'll get to our downs from the combine. Who is the Stephon Gilmore-like splash that you could see the Patriots making because they have a very similar cap situation as that 2017 offseason, right? Going into it.
Wasn't it 18?
Was it 18 or 17?
Oh, no, it was
17.
17.
17.
Yeah.
They have a very similar cap situation where I think that they can make one big swing on a free agent at some point, like a Stephon Gilmore.
Yeah.
A day one free agent type. Who's the guy in this class that you could see them doing that on?
So I think it's either Mike McGlinchey, who we just talked about, or Jesse Bates.
Okay.
I could see them, especially if Devin retires, just throwing a bag at a safety. And maybe it's Jordan Poyer. Like I should say position because it's interesting. The two positions, I think they do that tackle and safety.
Yeah.
They're going to have options, right? McGlinchey, Taylor at right tackle, even Caleb McGarry if you want to throw him in there. And then at safety, Jesse Bates, Vaughn Bell, Jordan Poyer.
I like Juan Thornhill for them
Juan
too.
Thornton would be another guy, right? So somebody at one of those positions, and this is me not really answering the question again. Welcome to the show. But somebody at one of those two positions.
So I don't mind safety because I think that that's probably a pretty good market value. Like, I don't think you're going to have to give a safety $20 million a year.
And honestly, I also just don't love putting a rookie safety in that spot. If Devin leaves, I think that's a massive ask.
Yeah, if Devin ends up retiring, I'm all with you on Jesse Bates. I think that would be the guy that they go after. But
would that mean we get to have Trags on the show?
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it.
I love Tremaine Edmonds for them too.
Okay.
I'm in on Tremaine Edmonds. I think the best part about them going after a guy like Tremaine, first of all, it gives you that second level defender that they have sort of tried to get, but have never really gone all in.
I'm also all for just stealing players from the Bills.
And it's the Stephon Gilmore's comparisons or parallels. Well, because
it's
all over the place.
It's going to be the same thing because then Bills fans have to pretend they never said the player was good, even though they did.
So Tremaine Edmonds has been good for Buffalo. I think that there's another level that he can reach.
I think that's fair.
Maybe Bill Belichick gets it out of him, which would be just a cherry on top to the fact that you have Tremaine Edmonds. we've all wanted that second level athletic linebacker, right? And he brings that to the table. And I love the idea of pairing him with Jawan Bentley.
Oh, yeah.
Because Jawan Bentley is just your lunch pail guy, right? He's just the do your job, fill the gap, and hit people type of mold. Tremaine Edmonds now is free to just fly around, right? Like, don't worry about, our numbers in the box. Don't worry about the fit. Don't worry about any, like, just see ball, get ball. Because Jawan Bentley is going to be the guy that's going to be in the right spot every single time. So I love that pairing with each other. And I just think that if you look at where he was drafted, early draft pick, great size, great athleticism, plays one of those Belichick positions that I still think he believes in, is important middle linebacker, even though it's devalued across the league. And maybe because it is a little bit devalued across the league, you're not looking at $20 million a year for Tremaine Edmonds. Maybe he comes in closer to $15 or $16 million a year. I'm all for that move. I like the Jesse Bates one too, though, if that ends up being the case with Devin.
Let me ask you about one more free agent, because there's actually a lot of people talking about him in the chat right now. And I was interested when I saw this morning. Braxton Berrios just got cut by the Jets.
Yeah, look, I think he's not the answer. He's not the guy that you bring in to solve all your problems. But if he ends up being here in camp next summer and he's competing for one of those back end of the roster receiver spots, he can contribute in the kicking game. He can sort of back up Marcus Jones. Like, maybe, you don't want Marcus Jones returning every single kickoff, right? Because he's burnt out a little bit. You throw him back there every couple of tries as well, and he maybe evolves into that slot receiver. The Jets thought he was going to be. Yeah. The Jets paid him, to be that guy.
How would you feel if he was the Jacoby Myers replacement? If they went out, traded for DeAndre Hopkins, and then signed Braxton Berrios?
Sure, I'm for it. I mean, I would probably rather them try to go with a little bit more upside and draft somebody.
All right, well, and then maybe they take like Demario Douglas in the 6th or 7th round.
Yeah, no, I'm all for Braxton Berrios coming back. How about you?
Yeah, I think that he probably had some untapped potential in New York. I think it's tough to grade any of those wide receivers because Zach Wilson was such a mess.
Yeah.
I actually think there's some untapped potential there. He's a guy I'd want it to be incentive heavy if they paid him, but like I wouldn't be afraid to maybe, go to the negotiating table with him a little bit.
Yeah. So Braxton Berrios too, when they drafted Garrett Wilson plays like the Z, plays a little bit of inside, a little bit of outside. So I think there was some overlap there too. And then if you're going to plan on keeping Elijah Moore happy and in the building, there's some even more overlap with a guy like Elijah Moore. So I think he ended up just being phased out more than anything by those two guys. And I think he can still play in the league. I think he's a little bit better than the Gunnar Olszewskis on offense. I think he can actually contribute to your offense a little bit at receiver. Yeah, I don't think that's a bad move at all. It's a depth. Let's call it a insurance policy to Jacoby Myers, right? If you don't re-sign Jacoby. All right, three down. We're gonna wrap it up here. Back to the combine. A little bit all over the place, but we got the plane landed here. 3 down from the combine. I mentioned it earlier. I went all receivers.
Oh, boy. Okay.
All receivers. 3 down, all receivers. The biggest one that we have to talk about, Jordan Addison, who
future Pittsburgh Steeler Jordan Addison.
I still like to a degree in the second round. Like, if he's there at 46, I think you definitely take it, right? And assuming you don't take a receiver in the first round, of course.
Yeah.
But he tested like a very, very mediocre athlete. And then when you watch him play, especially at USC, I don't know if there's another gear on the film either, right? Like, I don't think that this is a guy. I remember writing in my notes when I was watching him that he doesn't have breakaway speed necessarily. He's not a true burner. He ran a 4.49. It was better than the second run was better than the first run, right? I think the first run came in the 4.5.
I think it was like 4.52 or something, 4.53.
Yeah, and then the second run was a little bit quicker. I don't think that Jordan Addison is in the conversation with the 14th overall pick anymore. I think he's at earliest going to be a guy that starts maybe around the 25th pick of the first round. I no longer am taking him at 14.
Look at the Ravens at 22 if they bring Lamar back. I think that's probably like the earliest spot for him. But I think there is an argument now between him and Jalen Hyatt.
Yeah.
If that's what you're looking for. So that could push him down.
Okay, so Jalen Hyatt's on my list too. So
all right.
We might disagree on that one. All right. Second one.
Jalen Hyatt, so to be fair.
Let's just Second one is Jalen Hyatt.
No, a big part of his overall evaluation is production.
Yeah.
So that doesn't change at the combine.
Didn't change at the combine. I still think that I trust him as
You do not like Jalen Hyatt.
Don't like him at all. I still trust him as a guy to take the top off.
I'm going to call you blasting Rocky Top if the Patriots draft Jalen Hyatt.
4-4 for a burner, for your vertical, take the top off the defense threat. I can't have that. At least Tyquan ran a 4.28. Like, at least Tyquan's got that, got track speed. Like, Jalen Hyatt's got above average NFL speed for a receiver. He's right there with Zay Flowers. 4.4 is not, that's not legitimate, like, oh God, type of speed, right? Like, that's just above average NFL speed with the route running concerns I've had about him, with the translation to the NFL game that I've had from going from that offense in Tennessee, which is like basically like gimmicky Madden stuff. You go to that, you run a 4.4, you come in at like, what was he, like 185 pounds, something like that. I'm just all out on him. I'm all out. I've been all out the whole time, and the fact that he didn't run fast, I'm even more all out.
All right, that's fair.
The last one is going to hurt you a little
I know
bit.
I think we have overlap here. It's fair. It's fair. He did not have a good combine.
So, Kayshon Boutte.
Oh, no, that's not who it was, but it's not inaccurate, but that's not who I was thinking.
Kayshon Boutte, like, might be a UDFA after the combine.
He's off my board.
He's off the board.
He's off my board.
Horrible testing.
That's why we do the combine.
Horrible testing. Obviously had the issues off the field at the end of his LSU tenure.
Even came in undersized.
I think he might be a UDFA.
I don't think he's going to fall that far because I think a team will just look at the LSU pedigree at wide receiver and say on day 3 we'll take a shot.
Yeah, maybe he's a day 3 guy.
He's going to get drafted, but so much for my master plan of getting him at 46.
Yeah, no, that's long gone. All right, who are you guys?
So I thought you were going to say Tank Dell, who's another guy I'm a fan of. Really did not pop the way I wanted him to. We knew he was going to come in small, 5'8", 165, but a 4.49. Didn't run any of the agility drills, which isn't super encouraging.
Yeah.
And considering some other slot guys tested much better than I expected them to, Charlie Jones or Kim Jarrett, who are in that same range.
Right.
Again, it's that sorting out thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tank Dell, I had Tank Dell above them coming in. I now moved him down below them and below some other guys too. So I thought Tank Dell didn't have a great showing. The other two, and Evan, this kills me because it's been 2 years for me with both of these guys.
Uh-oh.
DeMarvion Overshone and Henry To'o. Yeah. I still think they're good players. I still think they have a chance in the NFL, but you watch both players, Overshone specifically, you watch Overshone on tape, and his athleticism, his explosiveness looks like his carrying trait. And he didn't have bad numbers, but I thought he was going to test like in that upper percentile. NFL.com does like a collective athleticism score. They had him as the 11th best linebacker out of like 20-something, which isn't bad, but it's not what I expect him to be in the top 5. Right? He's a guy you thought was going to come out, jump through the roof, crush the 40, all of that. To'o came in 16th at linebacker, ran a 4.62. Now, I would call his athleticism his second trait. I still think his football IQ is what I really like. But, a guy who I thought maybe at 46 now I think is more in that third round conversation, especially when you had some guys like, I had them, To'o and Overshone like one group above guys like Servassier Dennis, Owen Papo.
Yeah.
Now
Owen Papo had a great
right. Now I'm thinking maybe I flipped that.
Yeah, so
although Anthony Orji, a guy we like, also had a good combine.
Yeah, he had a good combine.
Maybe he moves into that.
The only guy that I came away really liking from this linebacker class is Jack Campbell. The rest of them I just can do without. Like
not Trenton Simpson.
I'm not a big Trenton Simpson guy, but from what
everybody else seemed very impressed. I thought he was fine.
Just talking to some people in India, just that know a little bit more college football than me, like yourself. He switched positions, I guess, at Clemson. So his last year because that was my biggest thing. I was like, he looks tentative. He looks a little bit of a step slow. Like his instincts to just like let it loose, right? Because I know he's athletic, but his instincts to just kind of hit the trigger and go just weren't exactly there. And I think maybe it had to do with the position switch. Like maybe that's why he wasn't quite as instinctive on film from his last year. So maybe if they draft him, I got to go and look at the sophomore tape?
Yeah. To be fair, there is something to be said for the position change guys that they have more upside.
Yeah.
It's kind of a glass half full, glass half empty. They are going to be more raw because, of course, they are. They haven't played the position as much, but the idea is if he's at this point, having played the position for a year, and he's this far along compared to guys who have played it their whole lives, all right, maybe there's some room to grow.
Right.
It's how you want to look at it.
So the year before, if I have this correct, the year before I believe he played the mic, and then last year he played more of that overhang slot type, weak side linebacker type of role. So he's a little bit more in space last year, which we'll see how that ends up translating. But Jack Campbell's the one guy that I feel like checks every box in terms of linebacker play, athletic, big, can move around, instinctive
See that
player.
athletic, though?
He tested really well.
Maybe I got to go back and watch. He doesn't, I call him explosive, but not athletic.
Yeah, he tested really well. He tested really well in the agilities, too.
So Leo Chenal?
With better agility.
Is that the comp? Okay.
Yeah. Maybe not as, missily, in a straight line, but similar to that. Henry To'oTo'o, though, standing with him at the podium, I talked to him a little bit in the interview. He's pretty small, too, on top of it. He didn't stand out.
Came in 6'1", 227. I thought he'd be bigger than that. That's another thing.
Yeah, he did not exactly fill out the old sweatshirt.
I mean, again, the idea with him is that
that's a draftism right there.
Didn't fill out the sweatshirt.
Didn't fill out the whole sweatshirt.
I think the idea with Henry To'oTo'o is you're trying to get the guy like Cam McGrone, Mac Wilson, Raekwon McMillan. It's another shot at that player. You're not drafting him to be big, but I thought he'd come in at least 230. I think Overshown did. He came in at 229. He's 6'3", but he came in at 229.
Yeah, so this linebacker class, not great. Not a great linebacker class, but that's okay. I don't think the Patriots are going to be too all over linebackers. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they pivot, right? Maybe they zig where everybody else zags, and everybody says, oh, it's a bad linebacker class, and they end up getting linebacker 1 in the 3rd round, and they feel great about it. I don't know, but this linebacker class doesn't exactly pop for me. But there's our 3 up, 3 down. Some free agency thoughts. Alex and I will be back a week from today on Thursday. We'll be 1 day into the official free agency and 3 or 4 days into the start of the legal tampering period. So I'm excited for next Thursday because we should have some real concrete news about some of the guys that they've added by that point. So we'll come back to you next Thursday, all free agency for a week. We'll put the draft stuff a little bit on the back burner. I know that's going to kill us, but we're going to do it. And we're going to talk free agency next week. But until then, signing off for Alex Barth, I'm Evan Lazar. See you next time. Listen to us next time. YouTube, Patriots.com.
Let's go land the plane.
Wherever you want to get your podcast. Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check Patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.